Hello, my name is FPS. Today is going to be a bit of a surprise. I'm going to try to do this in one take in less than an hour. My goal is to give help, but not too much, with some disclaimers. I'm not a doctor. This isn't medical advice. I'm a fool on the internet who doesn't even exist. The amount of information that's about to come at you, frankly, you're not prepared for. Not today. You didn't come ready. But I'm going to speak as though I have your undivided attention. And it's not going to be the most organized event. But we're going to get into it. To get her going a little bit, I'm going to tell you a story. You might have heard this story if you know anything about me previous to this. On Easter, when I was a kid, I was the youngest. I had 2 older siblings. We would wake up not to Easter baskets in our room or a whole big thing like Christmas presents or an Easter egg hunt even. We woke up to like a treat or a small Easter token and a note. It was a clue. It was a little poem that my mom had written that would lead to another clue. That would lead to another clue. And along the way, there's little bits of chocolate or this, that, until you found the basket. So from a young age, my mom was helping me connect dots, think, read into it, see a couple of different ways to see something. She would write these of her own mind. I don't think she was doing it for the other siblings. I don't think that even they thought that. I somehow knew my mom was doing it for me, but I never really knew why. My mom died. Coming up on 4 years. I came home, was with her for some time, and then found her dead one morning. And then I hit rock bottom, the bottom of a bottle. I used to play this game where if I got a 12-pack of beer and I thought it would last me a couple nights, and I would thought, oh no, I'm going to finish it. I was just a sorry drunk. In the alcoholic state of being drunk, I was just a sorry drunk. And I would have a thing where if I wake up in the morning, I won't drink again. And then many years down the line, I got to my last drink. It was some months after my mom died. And I had a prayer. And my mom was involved in my first prayer. I was about 11. And she had taken after my dad and become a real bad drunk. So both my parents are drunks. And I said a prayer that my mom would stop drinking. Because I really didn't feel like my dad had any hope. And the family was breaking up. And she sobered up. And for 20 years she was sober. She was drunk for about 10. And then a couple weeks later she died. But then I followed in the footsteps. And everybody I know is drunk. They shove it down our throat. They sell it everywhere. You can't find medical cannabis, but you can sure get drunk on St. Ides if you're 18 or 13. You hear what I'm saying? So when I hit the bottom of the bottle, I died there. I got to my last drink. I said a prayer. Lord help me. I'm going to drink it and I'm going to die. And I woke up in the morning and I drank again. And then I said the prayer again. And then I woke up the next morning and I was no longer drunk. The Lord had called me out of darkness into his marvelous light. But I was about 270 pounds and really hurting and really actually physically on the brink of death. I was in a bad spot. I was in a lot of pain. But on the inside, I was new. I could feel it. I knew it. Something was back. Something was more than whoever was. It was in this big, thick, decaying skin suit. But the way the Lord works, none of your life is wasted. So I knew how to do it, how to get out of it in an easy way and just walk right out of it to some degree. But it required me now in a big spiritual walk of all the other stuff that went on. This little bit, the path out, was required me to go back and reaffirm and research scientifically the hardcore stuff, everything I thought I knew, regather it and reconstruct it and reapply it and prove it. In that Christmas, I had lost like 65 pounds without an ounce of exercise, more or less. And I was back in my old clothes and back at the Christmas parties going, hey, yeah, I'm back. And it was all through diet. And the biggest breakthrough came like 3 months later when I discovered distilled water. You're about to hear probably a lot of things that you've never even thought before. I assure you, it's billion-dollar information. And nobody wants you to hear it, or know it, or try it. Of all the things that I knew how to do in my life to make myself healthy, that were really simple, that worked, that I reaffirmed, that I reapplied, and had a success with again. After all of that, distilled water changed everything. So I've had big struggles with this topic because of its power within the body. If you're ill, you should not try to apply this because of the power in the body. And I have to tell you up front that from my perspective, we're all very, very ill. We're about as ill as we can be. We're carrying a toxic load that's higher than any nation or generation prior to us. And we're still resilient. We're still pumping. We are so hard to kill. We are so hard to kill. Fragile. Life is fragile. But the human machine was made by God. And I'm telling you, brother, it is fantastic. It is fearfully and wonderfully made. And the link, the thing that ties it all together, is living water. Straight up H2O. Okay. So there's going to be a dearth of information here that's pointless to organize it entirely. Once you'll see the scope and the breadth of it, you'll realize the depth is only going to come from yourself. The main point is that water is alive. It's the main cog in the living food loop. Our body needs the living water. That's why they put fluoride in it, because it kills it. And if you think about all your food that's been killed and pasteurized and boiled, or packaged or processed, made by man, it's dead food. So you got us on dead water and dead food. Now you got to think what's probably more important there a little bit. Exactly. Exactly. The food you just have to, you have to defend out the toxins. So you're carrying a huge toxic load, and a distilled water fast will be such a powerful purge and cleanse that you'll probably have a fever. And if you're ill, or if you have an illness or an organ dysfunction that you're not aware of, you could have minor problems. And if you don't have good working kidneys, it's going to be very powerful. I say this up front because most people who understand what I'm saying and want to take the next step have most of this stuff under control, and the body is it's okay. But there are people who are sicker than you would believe, and they're walking around, dude. And they will try wild stuff on short notice, and that's why I don't exist. Okay? Now, the disclaimers here are when you get to the food and you're like, okay, what do I do? It's so complex. It's not complex. I mean, think about it. With God, there's only 4 things you can't do as a Christian. You can't eat food sacrificed to idols. You tell me when you figure that out. You can't eat things that have been strangled. Please no. Like as an NO. Don't strangle animals or eat them. Don't eat blood. Don't drink blood. And don't fornicate. And so when it comes to avoiding the toxins in your food, don't think about scientific chemical toxins. Okay? Think about space food. Think about man-made food. Think about stuff that's been condensed or altered, or things that don't occur naturally in food. Now, high fructose corn syrup, right here, HFCS, you must avoid it. It's only a more refined form of sugar, so all you have to do is kind of like move up the ladder to basic sugar. If you buy Coca-Cola, for instance, in America, it's made in America, and it's less expensive, and it's made with high fructose corn syrup. If you get the Mexican Coca-Cola bottles, it's made with sugar, and it's more expensive. Another topic. Margarine. Don't replace real raw butter for anything. You have to stay away from margarine or fake butter. Butter is the only thing that's solid at room temperature. That's how you know. The only vegetable oil you ought to keep is olive oil. In fact, you should add ghee. Ghee is clarified butter. And it has the highest flash point, which means you can fry absolutely any food on earth in it, and it won't go black, which is bad. That's dead food. It's also alive. You can have raw ghee, and then the point of the living food is it makes everything bioavailable. Everything about the food is alive. Everything about the water is alive. Everything about you is alive. The whole thing is alive. You got to keep it alive. And so if there's any one part, any one chain that's broken, that's dead, well, the whole thing, breaks down. Salt, you got to use salt. Okay, go find yourself a good Celtic salt. It doesn't have to be colored, though it should be. Most food is colored. Sugar should be brownish, amber. Salt could be pinkish. Most food has a color to it. And in that color are all of its healthy cofactors. Everything about it that makes it go and goes with it is in that color. And like white table sugar, when they take the brown out of it, that brown's vitamins. They put those in vitamins. And then you get the sugar without the vitamins that the sugar needs to not cause you illness. And then after they make the table syrup, they make the high fructose corn syrup, which is more potent. And so now when you're having a Coca-Cola with high fructose corn syrup, it's like having 7 Cokes. And your body senses that on the tongue and emits that much insulin, which creates insulin sensitivity because there's too much insulin for the amount of actual sugar. And then those insulin receptors dull just based on the presence of too much insulin and not enough sugar, not enough reaction. It just goes out there and lays around. And so they trigger all the sensors and there's no other sugar there. And so they just start to slow down. And go, okay, well, I guess some insulin just lays around. And so we got to adapt. And the diabetes comes from triggering on your tongue, your body to release digestive enzymes and insulin and hormones to prepare for 19 pounds of food. Because high fructose corn syrup is high fructose corn syrup. It's condensed sugar. Hyper-condensed, man-made condensed, space food. It's Tang, bro. And it's in all your packaged foods. Everything made in America. So the other thing is, if it's made in America with water, the water in all America processing has fluoride in it. So now you're trying to find a way to not even water your plants with fluoridated water and grow them in your backyard and never get any of the water, but it's hard. So again, you're not going to be able to avoid absolutely everything, but you have to avoid these things that are absolutely grand slams. There's just two of them. You have to read labels and you have to know what ingredients are. The only ingredients in food are protein, fat, and sugar. Most of the fat is butter or milk fat, cream, sour cream, cheese. Fat is the flavor delivery mechanism and the nutritional delivery mechanism for A, D, E, and K, the fat-soluble vitamins. It comes out of great green-growing grass and the animals that eat them. That's why we don't eat pork, because they're like too far away in our food chain. They're not a part of the living food loop. In China, a pigsty is underneath the latrine, and people walk up, take a poop, and then the pigs where they live, they go eat. You poop in a pig trough. Pigs are not animals for humans. They're too far away. It's like eating tree bark or something. It's not for us. It doesn't work with our body. Trust me. Bible says goat's milk and cow's milk is fine. Probably goat's milk even better raw. Now, we haven't even gotten back on the whole thing yet. This is going to come back. Once you get those two down, all you have to avoid after that is MSG and anything that's not corn or soy. That is a corn or soy byproduct, right? Like, if you can get cornflakes that are organic and it's just corn and it's so good. You can get potato chips. They're just potato. You can make potato chips at home. You can have all that stuff. You can fry it in ghee. You can throw salt on it. Real food does not hurt you. Nobody ever got sick eating real food. Ever. The only people who got sick are the people who started eating space food. Dude, we've been doing it for like 4 generations. It's not your fault. We were all fooled. It's no big deal. All the science says that, well, cholesterols are made from the fat. Cholesterols are what make your hormones. When you have sugar that's got brown, it's big and it's raw and it's brown, it has nutrients and cofactors in there, and those cofactors operate with the sugar the same way that hormones have cofactors. It needs it all. That's why it's there. So, on that point, the last little bit on the diet. Sprouted grains are big. Ezekiel is a brand. You can get so many things that are sprouted grains now. You can get sprouted grain cereal, you can get sprouted grain bread, you can get sprouted grain whatever. It's sprouted. Figure it out. It's living. Makes sense. Raw honey. Honey doesn't go bad? There's so many things you can have in your house that don't go bad, that are raw, that have so much nutrients in them. And you can eat them every day, and they'll never make you sick. And they're always on your palate. They're like normalized on your palate. So you don't have like a tolerance effect or whatever, with everything else we have with food. They've got food working on us like a drug. Grade B maple syrup. If you don't know what that is, look into it. You haven't had real maple syrup in your whole life, probably. You've been drinking corn syrup. Corn syrup? Dude, we don't put corn syrup on pancakes. We put maple syrup on pancakes. Raw turbinado sugar. Now, I know that there's a whole big thing about sugar. See, on the scale of total sugar, raw turbinado sugar would be like, pure sugar. So, people will say like, well, dude, it's still pure sugar. You should use brown sugar or no sugar at all. Like people who won't put sugar in their coffee or something like that. And really, by the time you're using just like straight sugar, it's really for like coffee or maybe baking. And the raw turbinado sugar works for it all. And you'll just see that you'll have to kind of use more at first because your tolerance on your palate is for a more explosive, refined sugar. And you just have to get adapted to it. And because it's a whole sugar, because it sweetens the whole drink and has nutrients in it, you'll just naturally adapt to having less. But you need the real sugar in there. And on a scale of sugars, it's the most refined or sweet, the highest glycemic index. But we don't eat on a normal scale of sugars. We eat on a scale of high fructose corn syrup and fructose and sucrose and sucralose and all the fake sugars and shortened sugars that are too sweet. Too sweet. So by the time you get to raw turbinado sugar coming up from a bad diet, it's like It's just sugar, and you're allowed to have it. How about that? I'm saying have sugar. Take all your fake sugars out and use real sugar. If you're gonna give your body something to fight with, at least give it what it was designed to fight with. It has a program, a system. It has lock and key. Everything's just basic physical laws. And if you're feeding it bad building blocks or things that it has to adapt with or work short with, it's going to go off balance. And your whole point is homeostasis. So the diet isn't really a step up. It's just getting out of the way of your body. Remember, you're just trying to remove the parts where man has gotten us off track. And you just need to trust that you can't trust the supermarket shelves. Anything in a package, a plastic package that's a powder or in a box, is a fake bread. And there's no wheat germ in it, which means there's no fat and no protein. It's just the gluten, and that's why we get gluten allergies, because it's just lining our gut. And then a bacteria that only eats gluten takes over, and the things that need wheat germ and everything else, like, well, you don't get any of that, so they die off. Now you got all sorts of problems. Colitis, you name it. Okay, so the absolute biggest thing you can do, I forgot to mention this, is fermented beverages. You need to eat fermented drinks of some kind. And yeah, beer and wine do qualify in a small way, but strong drink is what we call wine today. But kombucha is like wine. If it's made with grapes and it's fermented, it's got to be labeled with a little bit of alcohol in it, because they don't want anybody buying it or drinking it or thinking that it's healthy, because the bacteria, the product, their gas off is sort of an ethanol alcohol at a very low percentage. But again, the Bible says don't drink only water, have some wine. It's good for the gut and for your frequent ailments. And I do believe it's probably a fermented beverage on order with like a fermented honey, fermented, like that's a mead, or fermented grapes, or fermented teas. And these kombuchas, oh man, they're so good on your gut. Oh, dude, you really only need to drink half of one on an empty stomach before you go to bed and when you wake up. And do it once a week. And you need to recolonize your gut. The colostrum that's on the nipple of the mom, the very first thing, it's like a glue plug that the baby gets first. It's a bacteria colonization, and it stays with them, and it helps digest the milk, and it stays with them until they're like 7. And if they don't drink raw milk again, they don't get any more bacteria, and the bacteria that digests the milk is in the milk. It's a living bacteria. It's lactolase and lactobacillus bacilli. When you put it in your gut, it then goes into your colon and gets on the walls with all the other flora. You have more bacteria in your gut than you have human body cells in your body. And then you can drink milk your whole life with no problems. Of course, people have problems with pasteurized milk. Every problem you've ever heard about pasteurized milk is 100% true. It's even worse because it's dead. They boil it to death. When they boil the bacteria, of course, it's already killed all the vitamins, all the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K. Why do you think they have to put vitamin D in milk? Because it's supposed to be in there in the first place, and they kill it. In fact, they take it out prior and sell it in vitamins, D3 for like $9 a pill or some horse manure, and feed you dead milk. And you wonder why nobody has strong bones. You know what the cost of a gallon of raw milk is? $15. Because inside of that is an entire farm. You can get butter and cheese, and it's raw, and you can just drink it. And it has the most nutrients of all food, basically. Secondarily, like vegetables at the grocery market, when you go to the produce center and you come home with vegetables and fruits, you have a farm. You pay. The reason you paid $1 for the tomato is because you can just chop the tomato up and throw it in your garden and grow them. But you pay for the convenience of going back and just having them all. Because they're sort of like selling you a farm every time. You're buying seeds. And we're taking that all home and just eating it up and throwing out the scraps. Or hardly even feeding it to the dogs. You know how much food we used to waste in America? Oh. Alright, back on track. Sprouted grains are big. Raw honey. Don't forget that the bees pollinate with your local. This is why you have to get local raw honey. It's alive with your flowers in your area, and it will protect you like instantaneously against all allergies and allergens that come from hay fever and whatnot. And you eat it year round for as long as you have it, because you can get a 90 pound of it or 1 pound of it, and as long as you put a clean spoon into it, it never goes bad. Just like maple syrup. You can have maple syrup that ages like wine. Real food doesn't go bad. You know what butter is? Milk you left on the counter. You know how you make ice cream? You stir raw milk with ice, and you put chocolate in it. If you're eating dessert and it's not chocolate, you're making huge mistakes. It is so healthy for you. Coffee, cocaine, these are all vasodilators. They just put cocaine in Coke. That's why I call it Coke, because it was just it was a fermented molasses beverage. It had cocaine in it, and that the fermentation creates an effervescence. So when you drink your kombucha and your fermented beverages, the key sign is that they're effervescent, which is one of the man's favorite words. The effervescence proves it's alive because that's the waste of the bacteria. And then in the balance of, you can clearly tell that it's a food because there's balance to that sort of thing. And it's sort of like be way off, but it comes together in a living food. Okay, so chocolate's a breakfast food. It has some like caffeine in it, like the cocoa bean. And so it's a breakfast food. You should be eating chocolate donuts, or you're going out of style. Breakfast and chocolate go together. Now, the thing is you will have too much sugar if you eat too much chocolate, and that's bad. And you just have to, milk chocolate has sometimes less sugar, and dark chocolate has a lot of caffeine. You can't have it too late. But that's the whole point. We always have chocolate as like ice cream and dessert and stuff, and it's always too late, and then people don't like it. You probably try it earlier in the day. It'd be like a coffee replacement. You imagine drinking, instead of coffee every morning, like getting addicted to a cup of hot cocoa. Kind of weak, with some warm raw milk for breakfast with like a egg that just came out of a chicken that has a golden pure yolk in it, and all the fat soluble vitamins in there and all the cholesterol that you need for your hormones. Make a sandwich out of it with jam that's just made from raspberries or blueberries. It isn't even sweetened, just crushed on sprouted grain bread. Eat food and fast, okay? You are a worm with an alimentary canal. The miracle of our form is that we have a tube that goes all the way from one end to the other. Okay? And that tube needs to be empty sometimes. Don't be afraid. The lifespan of food is 8 hours. Don't be afraid to go 8 hours without food and let the whole thing, clear out. Because once that happens, what does your body do? Well, it once it realizes you're not going to feed it, it goes, oh, we got all sorts of food stored, dude. You got glycogen in your muscles and glycogen in your liver, glycogen in your brain. You got fat all over all your organs and some on the outside. You have all sorts of food to eat. Plus you have all the gunk, all the charred up oil that's stuffed crammed in like joint change in the couch. And your body will start extracting all that stuff and getting like a second turn out of it. And then as you continue to fast, you'll have a purge. So this goes along with the distilled water because of the universal solvent living quotient. It takes all the inorganic materials out. All the things you can't get out of the body come out with distilled water. Fluoride comes out with distilled water. It's the only cure. This is billion-dollar information. Okay, well, before I really speed up, the last disclaimer here, okay? It's really important. Distilled water does not stop or block most toxins. Only keeps them circulate for removal, the inorganic molecules. So your organic living molecules in your body stay, and this thing gets all the stuff that shouldn't be there out, because that's what water does. We'll get to all of its properties, okay? There's a lot to go on. Your main first step is to stop contributing to your toxic load and simplify your food life. Try to go back to 1850. It's cheap. It's proven. All the tools exist. And it's satiating. When you eat food that stops you from wanting more food, it is the real deal. And you can do this with no cravings, no urges, no guilt, no discipline. Just living your life. Let's define what we're talking about here. If you Google drink distilled water, they're probably trying to get out ahead of me and probably leaking some stuff already that says you should drink it. Maybe. Okay. But for years, forever, you would see nothing. Anywhere you went looking for, should I drink distilled water? Because everybody knew you had to put it in cars and you had to clean with it and yada yada. Should I drink it? No, dude, it'll kill you in like 8 minutes. So that's the advice from the medical world that you should probably follow. I don't exist. What we're talking about is pure H2O. Lots and lots of this stacked together real close. You see the globe in there? Yeah. We don't live on a globe. The world's flat. What we're talking about is pure H2O. It has properties, okay? Where do we get, what is pure H2O? There's only 3 sources. Rainwater. It's free, but it's illegal to collect it where I live. Double carbon filter reverse osmosis. It's 39 cents a gallon. You get it from the machines outside or inside grocers. You get a 5-gallon jug, 2-gallon jug. Don't worry about the BPA and none of that stuff. I mean, yeah, worry about it. Like, get one that's free. You can't get a glass 5-gallon. You'll never be able to wield it. If you're using plastic, don't worry about it. Get the BPA free and just deal with it. The water does not absorb BS in its state. It'll go in you'll be able to taste it. You won't be able to taste plastic. You'll be able to taste all the water. Anything that water will absorb, anything. It's the essence of anything. So once you get hip to the flavor and the feel of living water, you'll know when it's taken up something. And truth be told, once you get to this point of drinking double carbon filter reverse osmosis or these others, your palate's cleansing and you're like 90% ahead of the game. And if you're already adapted to it and gone through your 3rd-day fast, then everything's just getting better for you. The other final thing is distilled water. Now, distilled water is sold on every supermarket shelf next to all the other gallons. They used to sell it everywhere, all the time. It was like by law, it had to be in a gas station because it is required to be in cars. But now you get it on supermarket shelves next to drinking water, that is next to baby formula water, that is next to, I don't know, all sorts of different waters. And guess what? They all got fluoride in them. Distilled water can't have fluoride in it. They would have to put it in afterwards, and then you would taste it. Because once you do these other 3, you realize, oh, okay, there's something about this distilled water. And truth be told, even though the devil wants you to drink fluoride water and die, he has to give you the option right in front of your face. And guess what distilled water is? It's the cheapest option on the shelf. Everywhere you go. It used to be 88 cents a gallon, but when I started talking about this a couple years ago, it went up to $1.10. The best way to go about it is get the 2.5-gallon jugs, poke a hole in the top, and go about drinking it. And when you start drinking it, there's a whole system to how much you're going to do or not do, okay? But you can't short yourself. You got to do something where you kick out the fluoride toothpaste and brush your teeth only with distilled water and non-fluoridated toothpaste. And you might want to think about stopping your deodorant with aluminum or all sorts of metals in it, because all of those are antibacterial. They could put silver in it. They could put tin in it. But once you get cleaned out, you'll no longer have any body odor. So you'll stop using deodorant, which saves a lot of money and toxins. So you just keep getting better. Okay, so let's get into this. The first thing I want to say about distilled water is that pure water's one of its biggest traits is that it does not conduct electricity. It needs a solute or an impurity in 2 of them to conduct electricity through it. What else? It carries data. So homeopathic medicine would be to put like an essence of a 1/1,000,000th in water, in pure water, because it would carry the data of it. And so there's a whole big thing about water. You can make DVD movies out of it. When you have glass filaments underneath the ground that are carrying light data, those could be tubes of water. But it would have to be pure water without fluoride in it. And that would also kind of halfway not make any sense, because actually UHF through the air broadband contains the most data. And there's really no reason to have ever gone digital. The greatest technological inventions of man actually were like the TV and the phonograph. The original tube TV on UHF and the record player and the record. RCA made a record that could play movies. It could only hold about 60 minutes on each side. or like 30 minutes on each side. That was probably the greatest technological achievement of man. Digitizing stuff, taking it from analog to digital, has been a huge step back by salesmanship, marketing, and propaganda, and a further step back. We are far less technologically advanced than people like to believe. And it's partly because our pineal glands are all calcified. Now, we'll get to all that stuff. We'll get to the cleanse. The physical properties. Here's some stuff that's just interesting. Okay, we'll start on the left here. Physical properties. I know you can't read that, slightly pink. It's found in all three states. Yada yada. Okay, conduction of heat. Highest of all liquids except for mercury. So distilled water is used in coolants for that reason and every other thing, because in terms of work in cooling things, it has the most flexibility. It also has the highest of all common latent heat of vaporization of substances. Latent heat of fusion, high for a molecule of its size. Heat capacity, highest of all common solids and liquids. Density, it's most dense at 4 degrees centigrade for pure water. It is a universal solvent. It dissolves more substances than any other common liquid. Don't ever forget that fat and water don't mix. So when you got water on the side, it's got to be pure water. When you're trying to learn how to cook and how to eat, you're emulsifying fat and water. You're mixing them like a soap. But you use salt and heat instead, and it emulsifies the fat-soluble vitamins in the flavor delivery with the water-soluble flavors and nutrients. It makes food, and it satiates our body and turns off all of our cravings and all the other stuff associated with it. pH. Water disassociates into anions, OH, and cations, hydrogen. Polarity. Water has positive and negative ends. Gives it a slightly hydrophobic and a slightly hydrophilic effect. It has a meaning that it will flip slightly towards something, that it comes around and attracts it from either polarity. And this is why it is such a universal solvent, because it will go into ions, solute with ions, and mix them all up. Now, I found this from NASA. I thought this was cute. The main key here about water has 3 states. And of all things, like we talked about, it has the purest of them. You can get pure water and make it solid or liquid or gas. And the things that it will do with sound and light and heat at these different states are all fantastic and amazing. And this is connected to the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. You can choose which one's which. But we have the Holy Ghost referred to as living waters bubbling up in our chest. And there's a relationship to being baptized. Again, with the data transfer, I think that God wants us enveloped in water, like in the womb, to be born again. And there's something about water and the transfer of the experience and the spirituality to it, to the inner parts, the entrance of the Holy Ghost. Oh, and notice that in liquid form, it says it goes to the shape of the container, free surface, fixed volume. It doesn't mention that water always finds a level. Thank you, NASA, for not helping anybody do anything. So this is what we call the changing states, when it's condensing or evaporating, and then when it's going from solid to liquid, it's either melting or solidifying. And when it goes from solid to a gas, it's sublimation or deposition, which of course we know that precipitation is this whole thing, and that it goes with purifying water. Now, before I get into this, make sure that we understand water has some sort of universal interplay with life. And when we accept that it should be living within us, that it has effects. Okay. So, this experiment, everyone knows it's world famous. If you take pure water and you put it in a jar with white rice, and you write hate on one and love on the other, and keep them in the same exact environment, the one with love will look about the same, and the love with hate will putrefy and continue to putrefy. And you can exacerbate this if you put them in separate rooms and you put loving sort of things all around the loving one, and you come in and you say loving things to it. And the other one, you put sort of hateful noises and junk around it, and you talk to it like it's crap. And it will exacerbate the situation. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard this, if you've seen this, or however far along in the knowledge of this you are. And it would be, I don't know if I've ever heard it, but I'm telling you that this effect is from the data transfer of living water, like you and I. That when we have living water inside of us, our aura, our reach of love and hate can be felt. The effectiveness of what we're feeling in our hearts should be resonating with each other. I think we all know that. And I believe that killing water and feeding us dead water, when it calcifies our pineal gland, it kills our antenna, so to speak, so that this further isolates each of us in our own little flesh suit, where now all of a sudden the spiritual world is dead to us. And the only pleasure we really get is this addictive food substance we pull off our shelves, and drugs, and alcohol. And sin, which carries pleasure of the flesh, now supersedes the pleasures of the spirit, and peace, and long-suffering, and patience, and sacrifice, which do also have pleasure. But they're of a spiritual nature, and I believe that this pure water, this living water, is a key bridge to the organic living beings and the life and the living food loop. And then once you kill it, like I said, there's one chain broken, the whole chain's broke. We got to close the loop, re-energize with life. Now, when I started drinking distilled water, I would put it in glass jars. I still drink out of glass jars today. I don't know how to screen for lead anymore. It's very hard to find. I don't know why they put lead in anything. Lead's toxic. It shouldn't be in the paint. It's like, why do we have asbestos? We knew it was toxic when we put it up there. Why is there lead in paint? We knew it was toxic when we put it in there. Why is there lead in the pipes? We knew lead was toxic when we started making water pipes out of lead. And I found, here's another example. They call it the rice experiment. It's not the rice experiment. It's the water experiment. You can do it with literally any food item. Rice just happens to be very clearly like white and stays white. And then when it goes black, it's very clearly gross. So yeah, do it with rice or whatever. So when you see these, it relates to this. When you think about the most complex, beautiful thing here, that it's thank you. These other ones are also complex, and they are of this nature, where they will apply the acoustic vibration of hate or love, but they would do it according to these words and develop a snowflake effect only in pure water. Now, of course, this relates to cymatics. Cymatics, in short, is, the Bible says that the Lord holds up the universe by the word of his power, and that he spoke creation into being. And that we know that this table is not a table. What it is, it's 99% space. And the only thing that makes it a table is it's harmonized to itself. It's whatever this thing is harmonized at, much like each body that's listening to me right now. And that all things are created by sound and are held up by sound. The Father created us by singing us into creation. And he lives and breathes and sings today. And the power of the word, therefore, is the greatest key to the power of all humanity. And the bridge, I believe, is living water. Gratitude is the greatest human emotion. It's the most greatest, complex, purest, most holy thing. Forgiveness and gratitude. And, of course, love. Now, when you break that down to the cymatics, when you hit water with frequencies of sound, it creates geometric shapes that flux and change colors. They look like stars, literally. So when you look up at night, God says there's waters above. And if he's got some sort of obedient spirit there, that is some vibration it would emit light. And that's what stars look like. Exactly what you get when you hit pure water with 528. You get a star-looking thing, like a spirit. And the event where Legion met the Lord, and the Lord cast him out, they begged of him, said, don't cast us into dry places. Cast us into the swine. And the story goes that Legion took like 1,000 pigs, wild pigs, into the ocean off a cliff. No one connects the dots. Where were the spirits going? Into the water. The spirits move through the water. So when you see that before you even speak, you're affecting life. You see you have the power of creation when you speak. You see that man, our linguistic capabilities, we're not an animal. We have profound powers of healing and love and compassion and gratitude and forgiveness. And these are our highest orders, and these create our highest, most complex geometrical shapes. And this is something that resonates from your chest. If you have living water in you, and if they have living water in them, they feel it. And then you would be more sensitive to it, and you'd probably, you know how you walk into a room and you can feel that something's wrong? Well, what if you could really feel it, and then you could really feel that something's right? How much harder would you work in your house to keep that peace? Remember, this is distilled water we're talking about here. All it is precipitation. We're in a flat earth. It's a giant terrarium. We're under a glass dome. Water goes up, condenses, comes down. It's rainwater. It's distilled water. It's an experiment that we can recreate on a desktop and get all the same benefits from, unlike gravity or the solar system or the spin of the globe. Do you feel like you're moving? Me neither. And this is how you come to the power of the word, through the water and the data transmission. The Bible says that God's going to hold us accountable for every muttered utterance. But because when we speak, it bubbles up from our heart. First we believe, then we confess. And we do. And just like the salvation order, as you believe in your heart, you confess through your lips, and you go get baptized. So by the time you're saying something, it's as real as it gets. A man's word is his bond. He doesn't have to swear an oath to anything. He says yes or no. And words are real. Don't let people fluff you up with false words, and don't let people degrade you with false words. They're false words. They're just lies and deceit. You know the real stuff, the truth. God is a God of truth, God of love. There's going to be love somewhere in there. So when people are fluffing you up, there's no love in there. They're trying to trip you up, trying to get you big-headed, so you'll make a mistake. Probably because you're good, probably because you're uncorruptible. And they think I hate you every day. Now how do you defeat that? Making them brown and dirty too? No. You gotta get pure. Alright. So, when you start to cleanse, okay, there's a couple ways you can get into this. What I would recommend is you gotta do some sort of gentle fast. Maybe put on the side like a slow cooker item that's got rice into it, and maybe no meat, and slow cook that up and have it with like an egg for breakfast, and then before the sun comes up, and see if you can skip lunch. And then you should be able to come home to that slow cooker, cooking up your food and eating it. See how many days like that you can string together. Get a mono diet. A mono diet is like a modified fast. I did an Ayurvedic cleanse with mung bean as the mono diet, and we had spices in our curry that were supposed to fit our body type. And the mung bean really helped because it was gentle and you could eat it during the day if you got hungry, but it kept you on the mono diet and didn't fill you up. Because remember that the key to the fasting is really getting the 8-hour food life completed, all the way cycled out, so that your body gets the registered effect of it's not getting any more food. So it will switch gears and begin to draw on its reserves and what it's stored. And I know that it seems strange that there would be toxins in there that would be burnt up, but it's just exactly how it works, and you'll feel it. You'll feel it in your blood. You'll feel it in your joints. One of the key aspects to all this is your lymph. I'll explain it a little bit as I move forward when I get into the organs. Okay, but the cleanse, if you do a fast, you only need to do like 8 hours. And if you can do it 2 or 3 days in a row, the key is to come down easy. And that might mean like bread and rice sort of things, but it really means like no fast food. You can't come off a cleanse. You can't come off a cleanse even without distilled water and eat fast food. So you're preparing yourself for like a powerful and gentle. It's going to be a powerful cleanse. There's going to be purging. If you can go for 3 days where you're just eating light food for dinner and for breakfast and going out through a whole sunshine with no food and drinking distilled water, by about the late second day, you're going to get thirsty. And that's your body going, oh, okay, this is real. We actually have living water available. And now we're going to go into the process of cleansing. And the third evening, you're going to have a purge. It's going to come out of maybe both ends. You're going to have snot. You're going to have coughing. You're going to have mucus. You're going to have going to the bathroom and having like a real cleanse, dude. Like the one you want. The actual cleanse. Real stuff coming out of your body, and you feeling lighter and cleaner and more clear-headed, and your vision starts to get better. You start to have a better mood, and your food cravings, everything sort of gets a little bit normal, almost instantaneously. And if you can go this for 30 days, 40 days, you're moving towards all of your habits, just sort of adapting to having a clean palate and saying, I don't want any more of this food in my life. Because if you can get these things out of your kitchen first and then do the fast, you'll have greater success. If you're not able to kick these things out of your diet, if you don't know what I'm talking about and you think that distilled water is going to solve a bunch of stuff, don't do it. I'm telling you. It's not going to feel right. You're going to throw your body into whack, and you don't know if you got a bad kidney or a jumpy heart or some other junk. But good butter and distilled water, you're going to have a lot of problems solved. Your organs doing strange stuff, dude. Coming back to life, kicking stuff out. Okay. This cleanse with distilled water, it'll take everything out. If you were to have an addiction and you were going to kick it and you were a good, healthy person, maybe you've already been doing this before, but you still got an addiction to something, you can trust distilled water to have a profound effect on the cleansing of that. If you're trying to get rid of bad food, you have to leave whatever you want off the plate and gone, and then do the fast. And then that stuff shouldn't be there, and then you come off without it, and it's your best chance of getting rid of it, whatever it might be, because you've gotten the talons out of your flesh and cleansed out, and to put them back in, you'll feel it, and then you'll be like ripping talons back in and out, and you'll start to realize the lack of wisdom in the body, because the organs want to be homeostatic and they don't want to get repurged, and you have to focus on cleansing out the crap. There really is no starting. If you're eating high fructose corn syrup and Crisco and you think butter's bad for you, you're going to struggle. The purge is really a lot of fun, because you go through so many cleanses in your life, and ayahuasca stuff, all sorts of strange things go on. And to realize that you're getting a purge out of water, it will change your mind. So remember that you got kidneys, and kidneys are like fish gills. They're just a physical filter, okay? And they're all gummed up and stuck together. And you got to hose them off, and living water is going to flush those kidneys the best. Now you got lymph nodes, okay? Lymph, cardiovascular veins, neurological pathways, they go all the same spaces. It's like a big wire thing. You're all wired up, and the lymph follows along. Okay, the lymph is in between like solid tissue and liquid. It's got the mucus in there, and the mucus is macrophages. It's wrapping up all the allergens and all the stuff that you're trying to kill. So it gets lumpy, it gets sticky, and if you're not hydrated, it won't move. Okay, there's a path for these. They go from the top of the head into the heart, and then from the feet and the fingers to the heart. They go inward. And so when you are trying to get them going, if you scratch the back of your head, you know how you get that tingle? Or if you do it on your forearms, okay, that's your lymph waking up. So if you were going to do a 1-day or a 3-day fast right off the bat, I would tell you the first day, one of the things you got to get prepared with is a little tiny 4-ounce bottle of vitamin E oil or sesame seed oil. Remember, vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin. And so vitamin E oil would be a bioavailable vitamin. And vitamins are antioxidants. Vitamins are the cofactors for working. And if vitamin E goes through your skin, you don't need a lot. The truth is you're putting it on there for a lubricant because you're going to rub your skin. You're going to put pressure on the lymph and push it along. And you're pushing it through one-way valves. And you're not really doing anything besides actually, once that fat soluble that matches your skin just absorbs like right away, you'll find it's really absorbent, and that's it's going into the lymph and it's like lubricating it up, and it's going to start moving along. And so you don't need to do anything besides kind of tickle yourself and scratch. And then I'll explain how it goes from the top of the head. Except when you go, once you get the vitamin D going and you're all okay, start from the top. I don't want to edit this. You start your fast, and the first day, the thing is you want to get your lymph going because that's part of your cleanse. And you want that to go into your bowels, like on the first jump, because that's the best one. If you try to do it on day 4 or 5, you're halfway behind. There's a lot of stuff there that's like, you got to blow your nose when you wake up in the morning. There's like stopped up stuff in all of your one-way valves, from your head to toe, and your lymph. And it needs to move around because it's your immune system. It's where it goes and it stuffs it in there to move it where it needs to move. And the way that it gets it out is that it drips it into your bloodstream. And in your bloodstream, it kind of gets burnt out and goes into your kidneys, or it sweats out, goes where it needs to go. But the lymph goes into your bloodstream. That's why you push it towards your heart. So if you're super toxic, this is going to be part of your cleanse action where you got to be doing this where you're cleansing. Because if not, you're just pushing this gunk into your heart. So you would start like the evening of the first day. And you get the vitamin E, and after you shower or before you shower. Doesn't matter. It's going to absorb. And your skin's going to feel great. You start to tickle your head, like a barber or something. Your girlfriend, get the tingles, and then scratch your forearms a little bit, and it should feel really, really good. Like there's not like you're stimulating something, and then it starts to feel less and less. And so just let it have its full effect, because you're wakening up your lymph, and they're going, okay, you're gonna get your vitamin E, and you're gonna get it nice and warm, and you're gonna just kind of like rub it on your face, and you're gonna do your face. Okay, this is a Hollywood trick for alleviating bags under your eyes. All the puffiness, once you get your lymph clean, your skin like sucks to your bones better and you become more beautiful. And it's more radiant, obviously. So this gets rid of the under the neck stuff. Your skin will suck up. It gets rid of all sorts of junk. Like it beautifies, it cleanses your system, and it all works together. The lymph nodes go like from the top of your eyebrow to the outside of your brow, down your cheek, and they meet up like under your jaw. And you have some, you can't forget about, that are behind your ear and in front of your ear, and they go down to the cervical lymph that's underneath your jaw. And then you have, they go straight down into your chest and your thorax. And then the ones from your arm come in straight from your arm, and the legs go right up to the hips. Now the face, the main points are going to be that you're going to want to get the things that are like under your chin open and moving. So you're going to start from underneath your chin and get you'll still feel your lymph. And what you're not doing is pressing. You're trying to kind of basically rub the oil in and condition it to go down. Okay, you're going down a little bit like that. And then you're going to go and start next to your nose and start pushing it away from your nose towards underneath your eye. And you'll feel it and go slow with good pressure. The masseuse who taught me how to do this, she did it with maximum pressure. And it was almost traumatic every time. She was a little bit too strong. You don't need much. It wants to go. You're just getting it to go. It's like getting a string to go through a drawstring. You're just going to press and tickle, and you'll feel little bumps. And what you're trying to do is make sure that it's open beneath it so it has somewhere to go. And so you're kind of going to work up and then down. So that when you start to get up back to your forehead, you're going to draw it all down. You're going to draw it all down your face, out from underneath your eyes, out from underneath your top of your eyes, way underneath your brow. There's lymph in the back of there. You'll flatten out your eyelids and make your eyes close and open easier and be prettier. And then you draw it all down from the sides of your cheeks and in front of your ears, thin out your face. And then once you get it down underneath your neck, you got to work it down. Okay, so now you got a lot of gunk in your neck, and this is going to be like as much as you're going to do. You're going to give it a couple hours. Because then you want to work the lymph that's at your pits, at your groin and your pits. You're going to get the vitamin E oil and just work those 4 spots, one on each side, at your armpits in the front, and at your groin. And you'll feel those lymph spots. They'll be like nodules. Those are your big hinge and you're going to want to get those moving, because then on day 2, you're going to see if you can get down to it and do a whole lymph massage on your body. To your fingertips and all the way down, all the way in. And at this point, you should be feeling it. And you probably almost don't want to do it because you're like, I feel weird. You might have some palpitations, some heart flutters. Strange stuff will go on, dude. You're cleansing. So you got to be real gentle and know that you got time. Everything's going to be landing softly. So then the lymph will go into the bowel and you'll have a maximum purge, and that will like continue to draw everything out. Because once the lymph is open and free and cleansed out, it draws in the stuff that it couldn't draw in before, and then it's like going to do it again. And so you want to get it big the first time so it doesn't get like a false secondary draw. Remember, this first part, the first purge, is more like just getting out all the stops at the ends so that the rest of it can work. And this is a part of why it goes to like 3 or 30 days. Because the body starts to release and it goes through its organs and does it all on its own, and you got to give it time. And I believe this is why it took Jesus 40 days in the wilderness, because that's the fastest that you could possibly do it. So don't think that you're going to do it all in a day. It's far too much work. You're stepping into a whole other realm. Okay. So distilled water is appropriate for every machine because it's the most working water. It works best, quote unquote. It works the hardest. It's the hardest working thing in show business. Every machine needs distilled water either because it's cooling or because it's a cleansing action. And then when you go to clean anything in the world, it tells you to use pure H2O because it's the universal solvent and it will work the best to clean it. It makes the most sense. So obviously you should brush your teeth with it because it's going to clean them the best. Remember that cavities are not from sugar or candy or high fructose corn syrup. That stuff dissolves instantaneously. It is the carbohydrate paste from fake bread that is degermed wheat that is pure gluten, which is where we get a gluten sensitivity and then gluten allergies and then colitis. And we get a whole bunch of bacteria in there that only eat gluten. The other ones die off. So even when we eat the germ, we don't get all of it because what's in there helping us digest isn't there. So take the bacteria in your gut and the chewing of your teeth and call it digestion. Now when you cook stuff, you're aiding in digestion. You're pre-digesting it. And when you ferment it, you're aiding in digestion. Those bacteria are getting a jump. They're releasing the nutrients. They're making them bioavailable. So when you have all that stuff coming out online, you have a fauna lining your colon. You shouldn't be getting a colonoscopy that sterilizes your gut. Do you know how strong of a player your gut flora is in your immune system? Your immune system kills cancer. It kills everything. You're basically impervious. And the gut and the fauna in your gut get power from your food. You get strength from your food. You get your protein building blocks. You get all the vitamins out of the water and the fat. And it continues to digest it. So you're just aiding it. There's a phenomenon called pancreatic insufficiency. Okay, the pancreas is what makes or releases all of these digestive enzymes. And they're just enzymes that digest basically protein, fat, and sugar, just like the enzymes in your mouth. They're just stronger, more potent. Well, when they're not digesting food, because they're supposed to be really, really effective, obviously they're designed for it, they float around the body and eat cancer and eat away things that are getting reformed because your body's constantly reforming as specific to the stresses that you put on it. It's always adapting to your exact life. Your tolerances are always just as much as you needed last time. Your body's always responding specifically to what you're doing. So if you're getting pain from being still or static, no, the body's not meant to be static. You're just adapting to being still, and your body has no adaptation for it. It wants to work. Your body's the only machine on earth that gets stronger with work, and that means movement and unfortunately sweat as well. Remember, The Amish are still living today without electricity, without electric tools, without electric assistant, without dishwashers, clothes washers, laundry machine with the Tron and the plus. You know what I'm saying, big dog. Layman's in Ohio is still around after 190 million years selling non-electrical stuff to the Amish because they're surviving because they don't get diabetes or obesity or heart attacks or strokes because they don't eat man-made food. Roger, do you think they have gyms? No. Their bodies move. If you're just living your life, you have kids, you have someone you love that you go to and you help them, they're old, you do anything with your body. You bend over correctly, you move, you lift things, you pay attention to it, you stretch it out a little bit. Every now and then you ride a bike or just do silly stuff for exercise. Stay active enough so you can always keep up. You won't need to exercise. You don't need to pay $1 to a gym. I went from 270 to 170 with no exercise per se. There was bits where I have ridden some bikes and I walk, but you're just locomoting. You're just going about your life. Like you should be working kind of enough that it should come off you. Once you normalize your homeostatic body, you're already a skinny person and your body is just going to catch up. And since you're getting out of its way and cleaning out the toxins and feeding it what it needs, it's going to go really fast. Furthermore, once the nutrient density occurs in your food, you think of it like an egg. If it's a GMO chicken fed on corn, then the egg is going to be pale, and you're going to need 2 or 3 of them to get the same nutrients. Now, don't think about calories. Just think about the fact that your stomach's not that big, the stretch receptors don't need to stretch too much, and you don't need too much food. Your body doesn't need so much food. It really doesn't. You can go very, very, very long time without food. And you should test that because you just keep feeling better. And then you realize when you eat that like you really should have ate something gentle and pure because you don't feel good anymore. You were feeling really good and then now it's stopped. Now you go back to eating. It's going to be another week or a couple of days before you can fast again and get that feeling going. And it takes a day or 2 to get it back up again. It's like a burn. It's unbelievable. But when your food's clean and you're online, this stuff can go. And I'm not saying the Amish are superhumans, but they don't have pancreatic insufficiency. When your food is nutriently dense, the pancreatic enzymes, with very little effort or work or need or density or potency on their own account, digest the food, and then they can go and assist with all of their other duties. But when you have high fructose corn syrup, and you tell your pancreas that it needs to spurt out enough enzymes to eat 700 pieces of corn, because that's how much is in a sip of Coca-Cola, as far as your body's concerned. So it releases exactly that much. And then it doesn't find that much. Well, your pancreatic enzymes begin to slow down and not respond. And then when you do put the food in there, it doesn't really digest very well. It's amazing that we even eat some of the food we eat. Remember that fiber doesn't digest. It's just a thing that goes through. And most of the benefits of fiber from plants that they talk about is it takes away the fat and cholesterol with it very often. And so they love to get you on a low-fat diet. And if you're taking anything that attacks your cholesterol, know that you're taking something that is attacking the very fundamental building process of all your hormones. I don't think that sounds very safe for my body. That would freak me out. So in the Amish, without pancreatic insufficiency, they have nice healthy pancreases. Because despite every organ's primary function, every one of them cohesively team up in the immune system with their like Voltron arm part, and the pancreas is the one that brings the thing that can eat absolutely everything. Remember, it's eating the food that's made of the same 3 things you are: fat, protein, and sugar. The food's made of fat, protein, and sugar, and you're made of fat, protein, and sugar. And the pancreas enzymes eat that stuff. And so anything that's in you is made of that stuff too, and it just has a way of figuring it out, which is miraculous. So a healthy, flush pancreas will be strong and digest all the food, and then it won't release too much. There'll be a fullness to the meal and an end to the meal, satiation to the meal. So then we go back to the density, nutritions, and the fullness of the meal and the end of the meal. You know, you always know that you get like a little bit too hungry for the food, but then it also is like a little bit too satiating. you know? And with food, you can always seem to hit the spot. And I'm telling you that you need like fat, protein, and sugar to hit the spot. And if you're going to pick an ingredient for each, you'd want to pick a sugar that is complex or slow or not refined or high fructose corn syrup. If you're going to pick a fat, well, it should be like an olive oil or a nice, really clear, pure Mediterranean sort of godlike oil, or it should be ghee or butter. Straight up, either from cows or milk, or goats, rather. And the proteins, well, look, man, proteins, what are you closest to? They say you're close to a pig, and you believe you're an animal, but you're a man. And anything that is not of your own body that you put into your body, your immune system will attack it, including a porcine valve. We'll get to that later. But the man's body needs, like, animal parts. When you have joint problems and you take chondroitin and I forget the other word, but those are ground up like cartilage parts of animals because it's the closest thing to us. Whereas, like, we're not going to grind up humans for cartilage, but when you make chicken and you throw it in with the bones and you slow cook it and it draws all the marrow and melts all the cartilage. This is why bone broth with chicken soup so good for everybody. There's ways to get stuff that's like, it's a homeopathic principle, like for like. You get the cartilage for your cartilage. The same way they do, and they sell it to you in a pill, and it's from other strange stuff. You should be getting it bioavailable in your food. Everything you need you can get into food. It's basically medicine and defense. And throwing in toxins in there is self-defeatist in the utmost. But we're all being lied to, so no one can be blamed. And this is why this information is so valuable. Okay, so when you start to brush your teeth with distilled water and you drink distilled water, all right, if you look at your fingernails and you have white spots, that's calcium attached to fluoride. The body cannot get rid of fluoride. Not only does it kill the water, but it can't get rid of it. Now this gets a little bit complex when we get into like what it does with calcium and the pineal gland. But when it comes to the teeth and the fingernails and the hair, the calcium gets pushed out, or the fluoride gets pushed out. And the way that the body decides to do it is it attaches it to a calcium molecule and pushes it out through the hair, teeth, with the proteins. And they kind of grow out, okay? But in the meantime, they're a weakness. They're a flaw. They're an impurity in the structure. It's also in all of your bones, in your long bones. So it's adding brittleness and weakness to all your bones. And it will grow out your fingernails and out your teeth. And many more will be there. And the more fluoride you have, the more calcium and white spots you're going to have. But just like days, as fast as your fingernails grow, those white spots will grow out. With distilled water. Out of your teeth, too. So as they're getting cleaner, remember that your gums and your breath and all this stuff is also getting normalized. All of it should be pH and its living status, and all of the flora that are in your mouth are balancing. So all the breath bad stuff is going away. Plus, after the cleanse, we're going to get to the body odor stuff. But your teeth they're de-staining, They're like cleansing for good, and you're not re-staining them. If you drink distilled water every day, you'll find that the stains don't come back, even if you drink coffee. My teeth are hella white. I used to use whitener all the time, whitening toothpaste with fluoride. It never worked, and it made my gums hurt. Now my gums are all nice and pink and flush to my teeth, and my teeth are basically as white as they can be. I stain them pretty good, and they're still clean, and they're white. There's no spots. They're not purities. They keep getting whiter. Now the whites of my eyes haven't gone to some like glaring whiteness or some junk. There's not like this some weird cure, but now all of a sudden you have like hair that's softer and more like hair, more glorious and luxurious, along with your fingernails. Even your fingernails all of a sudden get really healthy and thick and strong. They're gorgeous. It's unbelievable what happens with everything about the visage, okay, when you put the real water in there, because guess what that is too? It's the best possible moisturizer from the inside out. So all of a sudden you have less moisturizer. I used to use moisturizer all the time. All the lip stuff, body stuff, just 'cause. My skin was always dry. But then, when I started using distilled water, I don't use it anymore. I don't have those problems. Now, I do have like man skin, but I just go with it at this point. Because you also exfoliate. Exfoliate's big because it's like causing regeneration. That's why you shouldn't do it like every day or even once a week. You should do it when it looks like you need exfoliating. Now, once the kidneys get flushed, they're going to work better. The kidneys are where all the hormones for the heart come out of. So you're going to have possibly change in heart rhythms, rates. Your heart might slow down. It might have to be a bit where it speeds up. It might speed up during the phase where you're lymph pressing. It might speed up during the phase where you're purging. But it should begin to slow down. It'll be more efficient. You got living water in your body. And so the heart's all that stuff's going to be working better. Now, the body odor. Once you cleanse out, and if you're not putting toxins in your body, the body odor should go away. And if it does, you'll know that you hit a grand slam, and you should call me and tell me that you did everything right. Because that's about the last thing that happens, is all of a sudden you don't need deodorant anymore, and you don't have like stinkiness in general, and you wake up and your mouth is clean. And what's the other thing? Oh, deodorant will begin to irritate you. Your skin will get sensitive to the metals in there. You'll notice all of a sudden not just that you're really sensitive to sugar and you have a taste for bitter things or fermented beverages which seem bitter at first will become more palatable. Your flavor for these sour pickled things will become, you'll like it more, you'll sense the flavors in it more. You'll become more distasteful of anything that's super sweet and you want to keep it that way. That's why you should switch to a raw sugar. Or if you don't use sugar, don't use sugar. You use maple syrup and you do, and honey. Dude, honey. Come on, bro. Butter and honey? This is what we're talking about. Salt and butter and honey and chocolate. No cravings? Get serious. Okay. I need to talk about how, now that we're onto this, calcium. So it moves it into the bones. It moves into the teeth, fingernails, hair. Briefly on the pineal gland. I want you to think about a backyard pool that's got a shallow end and a deep end. And it's got like the shallow end's kind of smaller. It's like a violin. Deep end's real big. Okay, and it's filled up to like the brim basically. But then I want you to make that like a 3D enclosure that has that shape. It's like the shape of an almond on the outside, but the inside where it holds water has that pool shape and pool depth. And the outside looks like a pineapple. And this is the thing that's on the Pope's staff. It's the pineal gland. Now, if I'm not careful, this could get super intense. The pineal gland has water in it. It's got to be purified water, right? It's got to be pure living water. Just straight up H2O. It's like a viewing pool. However, to really simplify it, as an organ, and its function, has mass, has water in it, in its pool-like shape, it becomes very, very sensitive to any sort of tilt in all three dimensions. And so its place in between both ears, it aids in leveling and kinesthetic sense of balance. And then behind both eyes, it aids in the sight. Or it receives light. It receives, if you think about the body, if you put your palm up to a flashlight, like it's translucent. Well, if you were inside your body and your eyes were closed, at nighttime, the inside of the body would be dark. But if you went outside and opened your eyes and you're inside the body, that light coming in through your pupils, the pinholes in each eye, go through and hit your pineal gland. And the light, like it's a chandelier. And the light goes through your whole body. And for me, all of a sudden, like a cave, like in the daytime, there's light coming in. And I believe this is why Jesus says, when thine eye be single, your whole body is full of light. I don't know if he's saying drink distilled water to decalcify your pineal gland, but the antenna is this eye this eye that you have in the middle of your head is this other eye, and it's this hearer. Okay, so back to its functionality, so it makes a little more sense. Now that it has the sensitivity of water, where if it tilts forward or back or left or right, it gets very, very sensitive because it has that shallow end and a deep end. Well, if you take that whole pool, remember it's three-dimensional and enclosed, and there's senses all around it, like a sky or a dome, like a world, and it tilted back like it's going to sleep with the nose up. Well, that water collects at the back, and then it tickles all those sensors, and it switches into night mode, and it becomes the deep, big bowl, like the viewing pool. And then you go in there and you dream, and you look through the viewing thing, and that's your little dream spot. You're not supposed to jump in and leave. Okay, well, that's my astral projection video. You're supposed to just stay here and look. Okay, and this is where you go and you watch stuff in your head when you're reading a book and everything else. Okay, now remind yourself very simply that when you're walking around and your head's level, now it's like the fifth functioning organ for balance and sight and orientation, where you're not walking by sight, but you're walking by faith, where you're walking by your third eye. If your thine eye be single, we don't walk by sight, we walk by faith. If thine eye be single, and you're just feeling, if you have the living water connection with everything, all of a sudden this third eye becomes like more important than your eyesight. Having your heart sense, walking with intention, knowing that your words carry way too much power for you to even be speaking, that people already know how you feel because you feel that way. And we're designed to resonate and harmonize, and that data is transferred through living water. But if they're fluoridated and you're fluoridated, no one can feel nothing. Everybody's isolated. We go back to the flesh. At home in the flesh is away from the Lord. The spirit and the flesh are at odds. It's for mercy, it's for grace. It makes the most sense. Be born again by the Spirit, you go up. If you don't, you're still flesh. You go down to the dirt, so to speak. Okay, so the other thing that pineal gland does. Now you're level. Okay, now tilt your head forward. What are you doing? You're studying, you're reading, you're doing your purview. You got your nose and your eyes on your own work, and you're concentrating, you're thinking, you're doing what most men do, what you ought to be doing. Not looking up, not being a lifter of the eyelid, checking out the hips going in front of you. And this is where your pineal gland water will then tilt into the shallow end and have a different sort of effect overall. And the other thing you do, think about lovemaking. That's the only other time you're really leaning your head over something. And then the woman is facing the opposite way. And that's why lovemaking for women is like a dream experience when they go somewhere else. And we're like, we feel like sometimes, well, whatever. It's like too sober. Because it's like too sober. It's like leaning forward and reading a book or etching something and really focusing on your fingers or what you're reading. Because the pineal glands are activating another neural network that's switching your mode. And, you lay back and you're all the way in the mode of dream, and you lean forward and you're all the way in the mode of sobriety. And in between, you're kind of walking around on a level plane. Everybody's equal and everybody's connected. And the heart sense and the antenna and the moods, and it's all transferring. And this makes us more sensitive to love and hate, and therefore we would choose truth and choose life. But if we're dead and we're separate, we start to get cynical. Our heart hardens. We stop hearing the truth. You feel truth in the gut. It's got to sink past your heart. We're talking about chakras, people. There's a chakra and a heart. And if your heart is cold, dead, and petrified, and you can't feel nothing, that chakra's closed. You don't even feel stuff, never even hits your heart. It just goes down to your throat. And guess what? You say it. You say everything you got to say. And you say it from your head and your ego and your mind, your own man's natural mind, because that's the only chakra that's operating. And all that stuff that you're taking in needs to go down and sink past your throat into your heart. You got to lay some words on your heart. You need to hear some truth, because once the Lord circumcises your heart and softens your heart, and you feel the need for contrition and atonement and love for your brother, now you realize you're coming alive. And it's scary, because now it's real. Life is accountable, and the game is afoot. And once you bear the burden of that truth on your heart, it's going to start to sink down into your gut. This is where we get the prophet who eats the truth, and it's sweet in his mouth like honey. But when it hits his gut, it's bitter. Because the truth is bitter. The truth is a double-edged sword. It's sweet and it's bitter. It heals as it cuts. splits, divides as it brings together. It convicts as it releases free. It rewards as it brings recompense of bad. It's the word. The double-edged sword of the living word. And with this pineal gland closed and dead, we don't feel nothing. So our heart gets hard. Now all of a sudden we don't feel nothing on our heart. Remember, we used to feel things on your heart. You could really lay something on your heart. Really even simple stuff like, loyalty. The basics. Basic principles of like, I'm not going to steal today or lie today. You could lay it on your heart in a way that it would bubble back up at that time. And it would hold you. You could trust in it. You could trust in your heart. Now nothing lays on your heart. It's just always working in the mind. With the stress and the problem solving. Who's the smartest? Who's the biggest? Who's the strongest? There's always someone more. Don't even worry about it. You don't need to be smart to understand what you need to know. Anybody can do it. The key is not being a hearer only, but a doer of the truth. Now, the pineal gland aids in sleep. I don't want to get into astral projecting. I don't want to encourage it. You shouldn't go there. You're talking to a shaman. You're talking to the real deal. My advice to you is stay where you were placed. You can go there. You can drink blood and be a magician. You can do all sorts of stuff you wouldn't believe. You got a purview underneath your nose. And the Lord above is in charge of everything above your head. And that is freedom and liberty and grace. Just do what you were given and not worry about what's above your head. You got a pay grade. You got a role. You are not God. You were given far too much power. And then you were separated from the understanding that you had this power. You think you're just a natural man and beast. You think you're of the animal kingdom. It's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And then, unfortunately, we're really not too complex. We're very programmable. And if you're a person who understands that they can program themselves to wake up when they want to, then you're hip to what I'm talking about. The system, we can get hijacked. Our bodies can get hijacked, reprogrammed, rewired, cross-wired. Sometimes it needs trauma. Well, what's trauma? Trauma is a loss of innocence. What age you losing your innocence? Whatever age you watch Disney. Traumatized. Rewired. I'm trying to stay on track here, brother. Hang with me. That pineal gland in sleep, okay? This is going to happen with the purge. And it happens also at other times. The whole connection here. What I call it is the pineal pop. When it's calcified, you don't get the pop, okay? The two things that the pineal gland produces and releases. I want to say that the immune system is one of the only systems that has receptors all over the body. The other thing is cannabis, and the other thing is DMT, and like melatonin, and the things that the pineal gland produces and releases. DMT is released at death and when you take drugs. Melatonin is released when the sun goes down. This is part of the program. It's part of the system. There isn't so much we can do to break the system. In fact, I guess the unification here is that when you unify your body with design and its environment that it was designed to be in and interact with it the way it was designed to interact, you get the most out of your body. You get the most out of everything. Clearly. So that even if you're not spiritually in tune to this, okay, like you can eat pork or not eat pork, whatever your argument is. If you're trying to have a unification of design, because you believe in at least that let's give the body the best shot. Well, pork, the reason we don't eat it is because it's far out of our food chain. It's not a big deal. It's just not close enough to us to be ideal. And it eats a lot of filthy stuff and contains toxins and is a biomagnifier of toxins into its own system. It's a dirty animal. It's no big deal. But God also says spiritually, that whatever's put in front of you, if you sanctify it with prayer and thanksgiving, the Lord's death made it free for you to eat. We have ultimate freedom spiritually in God when you do things in faith. Remember, He's the invisible God of spirit. We are not children of a blood genealogy. We are children of a promise that you believe in and accept and take on faith. So eating in faith in the spirit and accept the worship of God is fully appropriate. And He would never cause harm to us by that. And that's why we pray in thanks before every meal, in case our enemies spoiled it or put witchcraft in it or poison. Because then it kills it. Remember the power of the word? Love and hate? Well, do you believe in magic? What defends against witchcraft? Prayer to the Almighty God, the Almighty Spirit. So you're unifying either way, whether you're in spirit or you're in the flesh and you want to do stuff that makes your heart work right and everything else. Well, normalize. You're seeking homeostasis. And dude, if you're not sleeping right, you're not getting homeostatic. What I think about the body when we sleep is the spirit falls down past the dream state all the way out into the darkness of the bottomless, and then we fall into the hand of the Lord, and He brings us up above the world, and there He gives our spirit rest and restoration. And then when it's time to go into the body, He zaps us through our pineal gland like Avatar into the skin suit. We are the ghost in the machine, and this machine has profound spiritual powers. Well, that machine also has machine programming, and in the programming has healing and restoration of its own flesh and blood without the spirit. And maybe the spirit has so much executive control over it that it needs to exit for the body to do what it needs to do when it sleeps. And that's why we get 8 solid hours of darkness, or for some reason we just black out and all fall back and go behind closed doors in the dark for 8 hours. And then wake up and nobody thanks God, you hypocrites. But our body needs to heal, and it does it during sleep. And that's part of the system. It's part of the program, and you got to get on board with it. And once you know this, dude, nobody argues about sleep. You need some sleep. If you have sleep problems, you're talking to me right now. And when you're a kid, you forget this. But when you used to close your eyes and be like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep, you just kind of fall into your body, and then you get this pop. And there would come a little light in the darkness of your eyes. And you would hear a pop in both ears, like it was in the middle of your head. And then you would just fall asleep. Now this pineal pop goes away when your pineal gland gets calcified. And that pop is to the degree and gradient that the melatonin and DMT or whatever else from the pineal gland needs to be released. The bigger the pop, the stronger, the deeper the sleep. The clearer it's going to be. If your pineal gland, if you're a program and I testify, you can basically just wake up and go to bed whenever you want to. Just tell your brain. You don't need a watch. You know what time it is. Bible says don't worry about days, times, months, years, hours. You have a clock. You have a heart. It's in rhythm with the moon and the stars to keep our months and the sun in your years. You have a clock. You don't need to worry about it. You can just program yourself. Now, you can't if your pineal gland's calcified and your water is dead and you got no control executively over your machine from the spirit. The pineal gland's the interface of clarity. And so the sleep and all those mechanisms are the upper echelon of executive authority that lose some of their, it's sort of like a default, in a situation of stress, you just kind of reside in the body and hope on the Lord or something. We can't get out. We can't transfer. We can't communicate. But we're here in this body, and that's the deal. And your body is entirely sovereign. Nothing can get in without your permission. And when you tell it to go, it must go, and it can't come back without your permission, including the Holy Ghost. Free will is a real problem even for God, because we have to choose. We got to choose life. We got to choose truth. In our heart, we got to let the Holy Ghost in, and we got to kick all the bad ones out. And the only way they're going out is the name of Jesus Christ, the name above every name, and they will leave. You can wield it even in lying sin, which many people do. But if you see the power of the name, you might just trust in God. and believe the Bible is exactly what it claims to be. So when you sleep, without a popping pineal gland, without like a labile, flexible, happy pineal gland, it's not as deep. It's not as complete. The process isn't as full. It doesn't have its full effect. But as you cleanse, you'll, like day 3 or day 30, you'll have a couple of them. And if you have a born-again experience, like I had, you have the same thing going. So I had a born-again experience with pineal pops, and then I had even more when I picked up the distilled water. Because I believe this is where I'm getting it. I believe that the Lord needs this connection. The antenna's got to be clear. So when you get born again, you get the rebirth, and He gets you a regeneration of the flesh. And of course, He's going to restore the tools He needs. And I went from sick, like I told you, bottom of a bottle. I'm swimming back up to tell you, you don't need to go down there. Nothing but death. Swim back up. Nothing down there, people. But it came with regeneration of the flesh, too. All these things came from the Lord, of course. But there is a system here. And you got to realize that, believe it or not, they've gotten the system to the brink of collapse in each and every compartment. Like all the dials as high as they can all go without blowing the speaker. And they work it, and they work it, and they're just waiting for people to get cancer and pop off and die. Break down. And then they blame them. There's no food in their food, and you're blaming people. Do you know who has the highest rates of these diseases we're talking about? Poor people. Why? Because they buy cheap food. Why? Because it's made by man and chemicals. And it's easier to do than actually getting it out of farmers and paying a man a living wage. So the cheaper our food gets, the less wages all of our Americans are getting. And there goes our way of life. Now we're all dependent upon cheap food. Well, the food has no nutrients in it. That's why no one's stopping eating it. Doesn't matter how much calories in it. They're going for nutrients. Why does your dog and cat eat the grass? I don't know. Why do you feed them kibble? Dogs survive for thousands of years on the scraps of men and human food and our garbage. Why are we feeding them kibble? Probably the same reason we're eating the grass. Because in the grass are fat-soluble vitamins, 80 and 8K. And they're craving. Have you ever thought of what a craving is? Have you ever trusted your body? Your body is telling you what it needs. If it's craving sugar, give it sugar. If it's craving fat, give it fat. If it's craving protein, give it protein. If it's craving some strange thing, it's because it has a vitamin in there or some nutrient that you can't find in your diet. Some salt or some iodide or who knows what's it. This is what prenatal vitamins are about. This is what pregnancy cravings are about. The body needed stuff that probably didn't have. It ran through it. Started craving it. Telling you what to eat. I want pickles and peanut butter on Oreo cookie ice cream with strawberry sauce. I don't know where the nutrient is in there, but it's somewhere in there. It's probably in the ice cream. You should eat chocolate ice cream for breakfast. Okay. So as you sleep better, think about waking up with a clear head. Remember those days? Your breath doesn't stink. Your eyes are clear. What if it's 5%? It's everything you want. Okay, so then we have this hive body. This is what I'm talking about, your aura. Your aura quickens means life. So your aura quickens, it becomes alive and connected to everybody else. So you can trust your heart. You can trust that you do feel those things. And you can sort of give it to God that when you walk in somewhere and your heart is in the right place, you don't have to say anything if need be. You should be able to keep your mouth shut and that you're speaking. You are being heard. God knows your heart. And they can feel it too. He put that in place. And you should trust that. You know that we feel stuff from each other. And you just think about maybe the reason we're not really clear about it is because we don't believe in spirit. We don't believe in magic, and we're all dead. So we don't really feel it. We do feel it because they can't really kill it. The little bit that we do feel is the last remaining living bit. And once you bring it back to life, well, knowledge changes things. Knowledge changes things. For my people perish for a lack of knowledge. So that's about the totality of the distilled water burst. I wouldn't hit stop just yet. I know you guys have heard me preach the gospel. I'm not going to finish this off with a baptism rant. But this information is super valuable. Like I said, you can't collect rainwater in some places. Finding distilled water is getting more expensive. You should be using it in all your machines. You should be putting it in your car. Remember, this is a good example. Percolator, coffee machine, you've been using the tap water, whatever you've been using. Well, if you read the directions on your coffee machine, it says, to clean, use distilled water. To use and use for drinking coffee, use distilled water. You've not been using distilled water. So if you were to clean it, you would have to go get distilled water. So it's got to be available somewhere. Every machine that requires water requires distilled water. Now, if you put it in your coffee machine to clean it, don't drink that. If you put it in with coffee for the very first time, it's going to clean your coffee machine into that pot of coffee. Don't drink it. You shouldn't put even your coffee mug pot underneath there. Put like a glass bowl of other kind, and you should run distilled water through it 3 times and look what's in there. And then go back to tap water. You should just be finding ways to work distilled water into your life, like brushing your teeth. Now, people spend so much money on water. You can get it super cheap. And with a little bit of elbow grease, you're carrying jugs. You're maybe getting it delivered. It's not hard. I'm telling you, when you start finding these people that make water, like that place down the street, the strip mall that you've never went to because only weird people. Like, think about the American society. We all want to buy a plastic bottle and throw it away. But like weird people buy water in 5-gallon jugs and drive it home. So all those people that make that water, well, they're doing it one of those 3 ways, or 2, actually. They're not collecting rainwater. They're double carbon filter reverse osmosing it, or they're distilling it. And they know. Because after they learn to distill it, they have to like add something to it. And that thing is what they're going to like go buy fluoride. It's like the most toxic agent on earth. You can't even handle it. Literally, physically, like with hands or gloves. So they just have an on-site process, and they do it their own way. And it doesn't matter where the water came from, because those processes take it all out. And that process is obviously so cheap that it's still like 39 cents a gallon. Or I go to this place and I buy it, and it's $3 for 10 gallons. And to do it fast, or to work it into your life, you can stepwise it, whatever works. But if you half-ass it and you think you're going to get benefits, I assure you, you're giving yourself problems. You're like cleansing something out, getting it down to its bare layer before it heals, hitting it with dirt again. Like just exposing it, actually more vulnerable to the filth sticking around and reabsorbing. You know, like when I exercise, I was a trainer. I learned how to live without muscle soreness because it made the most sense to me. And then I became a trainer. And then I started training all these people that would be like, hey, I'm not sore. I'm like, yeah, that's why you pay me. They'd say, well, it doesn't feel like we're doing anything. And I go, well, if I made you sore, it'd be less effective. That's a part of the reason that you get sore. Is it didn't get cleared out. And you need to get that stuff cleared out so that you can heal. And that's part of the, recovery is where you gain all your strength. The work is, the body will just respond to the work. There's no reason to destroy yourself to where there's gunk in there causing you pain. Because it's like the leftover. It's like grit. It's like loose sand in between your muscle layers. You tore it all up. You went past fatigue, and you tore it all up. And then you woke up with a little bit of soreness, and then you had like delayed inflammation on day 2, and you were super sore. Well, you know what the cure for soreness is? Do the exact same exercise till you warm up again. And the blood will go in there and take all the waste right out, and all the soreness will go away. So people will come and be like, destroy me, dude. I want to feel the pain. I don't feel like I'm getting a gain unless I feel the pain. And you can do everything in the body without the pain. There is some requirement for suffering and pain for gain. But in this case, when you're cleansing, it should just go one direction towards the plus. And that's kind of how we walk towards God and towards truth. And repenting only means putting your heel on the ground and turning the other direction. And that's really why people don't come to God or Christ, because they think about the things they want in the world or their family. It's like the moment in the rapture. Are you really going to be able to leave earth for heaven? You're going to be able to leave earth behind that moment. Whoever else stays, whoever is in your family, your kids, your wife, you're really going to put God in that spot where you're just going to rely on the Creator to decide. And you're going to be able to leave earth behind? No, most people can't. They don't want to. It's like, yeah, no, I want to do a couple more. I'll do it tomorrow or something. Yeah, it just seems like a lot of like willpower and guilt. I don't know, man. I like rock and roll. Yeah, the world's got nothing for you. So when you turn and you make the decision, you don't need to hit the bottom of the bottle or the end of yourself. You will have to scrape up some contrition of heart, though. The Bible says the only way to approach God from an unsaved standpoint, or really to who I'm talking to or anybody else, is with a heart of contrition, with contrition of heart, or a broken spirit. Now, you don't need to get to the end of yourself. Be a broken spirit. The Bible says a stubborn, thick-necked man will eventually be broken beyond repair. That's my testimony. That happened to me. I'm here to tell you don't have to go that far. God loves you. He doesn't need you to go all through hell of a natural life and suffering for your sins before you call on Him. But you will need some contrition of heart. You will need forgiveness. You will have to have a soft and circumcised heart. You'll have to open that heart chakra. You'll have to let your heart feel again. Which, comes with pain, I guess. I don't know. Atonement. Contrition of heart. Not being right and everything. God's right. And He's in control of it all. He's got all the stuff above your head. Just be satisfied with our role in the machine. Try to unify yourself with the design of it so that it goes easier. There's less stress. You get away from all the yo-yoing and the addictions. Remember, they're getting us hopped up on food addictions. These are drugs they're giving us. High fructose corn syrup is a drug. Sugar is the most highly regulated body molecule in the body. Remember, the only other thing besides like the immune system and some very powerful systems that have a receptor in every cell is insulin, because every cell eats sugar, and insulin is the key for sugar to go into the cell. So high fructose corn syrup is like cocaine. Your body gets addicted to it. The up and the down. Meals should be even. When you approach a meal, it should be a small bunch of food that's thick and nutrient dense and rich with flavors and aromas. And you should be hungry. And then when you eat it, you should feel like, oh, I'm full and I'm satisfied. And I don't need to eat like 3 more plates of it or 7 ice cream cones afterwards. Maybe I'll have a glass of wine. But the satiation and reward kicks in. And the hunger, all that stuff shuts down and closes you off into like, the postprandial sleepy state or whatever it is. We're not supposed to get up and eat and play after we eat. Take advantage of what your body is telling you it wants to do during all the things you're forced to do every day anyways, which are eat and sleep and go to the bathroom and bathe and get water and cook food. And after some certain amount of time, if you have enough time and to watch TV, well, there's probably a lot you can keep doing in a day that's more productive for your family and people who love you and rely on you than so much TV or internet watching and stuff, right? Like the physical body working and keeping you fat-free, so to speak, young. Remember that it needs to work a little bit to stay strong because it gets stronger with work. So if you want a body that's fit for daily living, well, then you got to have some daily living because it's just going to adapt to whatever you make it do. So if you're feeling less active, it's probably because you are less active. The life requires a little bit of lean in, a little bit of edge. Don't be afraid to hold your bones. But also don't be afraid to let your heart win. And if people are going to take a small advantage and you're going to take a loss, trust in God. Remember the aura of love and hate. That the love is hated by hate. There's love and hate. Hate hates. And love, you know you're loved when you're hated. You see? Show the hate love. That's really the holiest thing you can do. Loving what loves you and hating what hates you is what everybody does. The step toward the Spirit, the holiness of God, is trying some small way to retain a heart of love in the face of hate. Because even letting it survive is a victory. Because they sense it. They can sense the love. Even if they're fluoridated and dead. Everybody knows. Now we can't read each other's minds. But there's a feel that we share. There's a connection. And we've lost it. And men's heart is waxed cold. And love is being lost. And violence is erupting. And this is a bad time. Sure. But it's never too late. There's a lot of information here. Most of it's proprietary, believe it or not. There's next levels to it. I've kept back, of course, many secrets, many mysteries. There's other things to the whole complex and program. And again, like I said, you probably shouldn't even try doing this. The world's too crazy. The resources are too unreliable. And then once you run out of distilled water, where are you going to get it? You got to be collecting it from the rain. Well, guess what's coming down from rain nowadays? It's chemicals. Probably part and parcel. They're making clouds, they're making rain with chemicals. So it's very hard to find pure water. If you can find it, I would encourage you to try this. I would encourage you to get your diet a little bit straight, kick out the 4 poisons. And I would encourage everybody to begin to try to live some hours with no food in their alimentary canal and the whole tube. Get it to where you can go a night, a day and a night, with an empty stomach. And when you wake up that next morning, man, I'm telling you, you're not going to be suffering. You're going to be so surprised at how energetic you feel. And that is just a continued cleansing and burning process. So I encourage you to get a nice wholesome relationship with food. Go back to 1850. Learn how to make food. Buy wholesale sprouted grains. Learn how to keep living food. Learn how to store food. Learn what food doesn't go bad. It's all very simple. We've been around a long time. Everybody knows how to do this stuff. And once you leave the TV and leave the grocery stores and you start asking around, you're going to find out your friend has chickens and there's just a cow a couple blocks down, and you can get the organic stuff from this guy, and they'll deliver it to your door nowadays. You can get in a network. There is nothing stopping anybody from starting. If you got a green thumb, embrace that. Know that people can't grow and people can. And if you got a green thumb, grow stuff, dude. I'm telling you, everybody in the world will pay you for your food. Whatever you grow won't go to waste. And if it is, think about that. Food comes out of the ground for free. When you go to the grocery store, you cut those things up, throw them out. You got a farm. The money of it, the exchange of it, it's like a slavery. Now, we are supposed to eat bread by the sweat of our brow, which means we've got to put our hands in there. We've got to work for it, but God gives the growth. We just plant the seeds. And that fruit is there for us. And it should unify with our body and satiate our needs without cravings or guilt or self-discipline. Just actual feeling really good. Eating like a king almost. Stay away from anything that's a processed sugar or like the king's delicacies of cakes and cupcakes. You'll get on a pancake binge or a waffle binge. Those are hard. You got to get a sprouted wheat. You got to make them yourself. You got to get the balance right. Just a little bit. You got to use gravy maple syrup. But there's a lot of sugar and a lot of carbohydrates, and you'll get on like a actual kick of needing that much sugar. And so really what you should start doing is just eradicate the high fructose corn syrup and all the simple sugars and the powders and the processed wheats and the processed flours, plastic packages of flour, boxes of flour, and get your sugar sort of normalized with a low glycemic index, and work yourself towards the vitamin E and the lymph massages. Get everything ready and begin your fast, and have a slow cooker cooking so that when you come home and you're finally starving, you know all day long there's food waiting for you. It will help you. It's like having a little bit of faith. And once you go out there and you realize, man, I'm surviving enough food in my gut, I feel great. You start wondering, like, how far can I go? And now you're walking, like, not by sight, you know? You're trusting that you were put here for a good purpose in a system and a body that is not an animal. It's greater than that. There might be purpose. There might be purpose. Amen. This is FPS. Maranatha.